And speaking of the game being very expensive, I want to mention this that the community um, finally, finally, will be content creators or Redditors, Twitter users, whatever the case may be, doesn't matter. The general Battlefield community, they're finally coming around. Finally. Not all of them, but good chunk of them finally coming around the idea that, hey, maybe this game is not gonna come out later this year. Which I've been saying to you since Battlefield Labs got announced. Since Battlefield Labs got announced, I've been telling you all. Ray and Andre been saying, like, no, they're definitely coming out. It's coming out later this year. And I'm like, no, boys, listen here. If the game is coming out later this year, I don't think Battlefield Labs will be a thing. So that's like, there's some things that you have to consider why the game is not gonna come out later this year. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna go find right now on my Twitter, because I did post reasons why the game is not gonna come out later this year. So I might as well tell you on the podcast just what I want to. So anyway, why the game is not gonna come out this year, and these are my observations, and I'll explain why the community is also thinking that way. So the reason why the game is not gonna come out later this year is that all the playtesters that have played this Battlefield Labs playtest, like the players that played the playtest on Battlefield Labs, they all been saying that the game is extremely alpha. Extremely. And speaking of alpha, I know that the Battlefield Labs new playtest, and there's going to be a new playtest tomorrow, I think, because I'm recording on the 26th of June. So there's going to be a new playtest tomorrow, and apparently the game is already in alpha stages. You know, it's not pre-alpha anymore, it's alpha. It doesn't matter if it's alpha, pre-alpha, it doesn't matter. But what the playtest said, that the playtest is the game is very alpha-like. Which is obvious, like you don't want to put everything into the game. So like I said, people gonna data mine and everything. They kinda knew that. Like some people knew that people gonna data mine everything, so that's obviously. But anyway, the game felt like really alpha because there was some unfinished animations, loads of placeholders, loads of items with no textures, all that kind of stuff. Whatever the case may be, there's loads of like the menus and everything. Like, clearly very, very alpha. Just they're still building the foundation of the game. Now, of course, people say like, oh, the build is a couple of months old. Of course, it's not finished and so on. Yeah, but when you want to when you want to test the game and you have thousands of people ready to playtest your build, you kind of want to give it the latest build you can give to the player base, because you want to see if something that you already created actually works. And when you like playtest something on a specific build, right, and then you have a build that is like a couple of months ahead, and you change something, and you have not playtested that, and then you, let's say, launch the game, it's like, oh, shit doesn't work, something is not right, or whatever the case may be, because you did not playtest that. Well, of course you did, but you did not playtest that properly with other 1,000 players that signed up for the playtest. So there's when you put something on labs, like if you're a developer and you put something on labs, you kind of want to put the latest build possible, so you get all the data that is somewhat relevant to your development, right? And that's why I'm saying that the people when play the Battlefield Labs playtest, as kind of assume, like, yeah, it's a couple of months old for sure, but you kind of have to assume that it's kind of the newest build, because it's just easier to find any bugs or important problems with the build, so that means you can fix it in your current build that you're working in the background, right? So that's one way they do it. But the way people describe the alpha is very, very early. You would need a miracle and a lot of crunching to do if the game is gonna come out later this year. If the game that they've been playing in the last month or two, and they think it's gonna come out later this year, it doesn't seem like it. So like you will need a lot of crunching to achieve that. Also, I mentioned that on the last couple of I think it was episode 40, was it 40 or 39? I can't remember. One of the early episodes we did. Jason Schreier, a reputable gaming journalist, He wrote an article maybe like a month ago or two about GTA 6, how GTA 6 got delayed. Well, delayed. It's gonna come out next year, May 2026, May. And of course, everyone's like thinking, oh, okay, so Battlefield can release this autumn. But Jason Schreier said in that article, which I haven't noticed because I don't really read those articles, but I had to read this one. He mentioned that, hey, there was lots of discussions from developers of a big multiplayer game. I think he mentioned AAA game. I think he mentioned AAA multiplayer game that is debating if they should release this autumn, and they were low-key hoping that the GTA is going to be releasing this autumn so they can have the March release date. But as soon as GTA 6 got announced, as soon as GTA was announced that it's releasing in May, that big multiplayer game was debating now if March is still the best release date, and should we push it to autumn? Well, they can't really do that because the game is not finished. Should we push it beyond summer and all that kind of stuff? So that's Jason Schreier saying about this big multiplayer game. Now, of course, he didn't say what multiplayer game that is, but that big multiplayer game could be, well, it's only Battlefield. He is not definitely talking about COD. Call of Duty will coming out later this year. That's a given. Then I checked what kind of other big multiplayer games coming out later this year, or even an upcoming year. The only Battlefield that comes to my mind. I don't know what other multiplayer games that we are talking about here that is coming out or planning to come out this autumn or in the next, upcoming spring. I don't know what games. The only thing that comes to my mind is multiplayer. Like Battlefield, right? That's the only game that comes to my mind. I checked, what games coming out in the next year, and Battlefield is the only thing that is somewhat scheduled. So, clearly he's talking about the Battlefield game because I don't know what other game he's talking about. So, inside, that means that developers are debating, publishers and developers, EA and DICE, they're debating if originally they had a March release, and now with GTA coming out in May, now they're thinking, fuck, it's March is still the best way to release is the best time to release the game. I still say yes, because if the game is not ready, I'd rather wait a little bit and finish it so we can reach that March deadline. Don't force it on autumn and have a shitty broken launch. I don't think anyone wants that. So that's why Battlefield Labs exists, because it just makes sense. You have almost a year to perfect the game from the playtest and the feedback you get from the players that play in this game. It kind of makes sense. So it made sense back then, it makes sense now. Now, of course, the single player, I think we discussed it 2 episodes ago. We talked about the article that was released on, Inspire? I can't remember what was the website, the website called the media establishment that wrote an article about the next Battlefield single player. And the creative directors came in on that, and they said in that article that our inspirations for the next Battlefield game are a movie called Civil War and a show called Lioness. Now that's not what did he say? Normal people in extraordinary situations. Sure, whatever. You can say whatever you want. It's fine. Civil War was an interesting movie. I haven't watched Lioness, the TV show, so I have no idea what. Sorry if I'm a bit coffee. I don't know why. It is a bit hot here. I haven't watched Lioness, so I have no idea how that show is. I watched the movie Civil War. It was fine, whatever. A movie about gaming journalists, not gaming journalists, war journalists going around America during a civil war. So that was the movie, and it's fine to be inspired by those titles. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with them. What I find it really, what's the word I'm looking for? Questionable. When did this movie came out, and when did the show came out? 2024. So that means, as I said, wherever Ridgeline Studios was working on the single player game 2 years ago, before they got shut down, scrapped. Everything got scrapped. Everything, what was it? I think the studio got, they got scrapped last year. Yeah, so they got scrapped 2024, March. The studio got closed down that was working on the Battlefield single player. Scrapped. Everything they worked on that game, scrapped. So that means, because regional studios got shut down, they need to give the single player missions to finish for someone else. So they gave it to Criterion, I think back in April, maybe? Yeah, 2024 April. So Criterion came in and started working on the single player game. After Richlight Studios got closed down, Marcus Leto, that was supposed to be the Kevin Feige of Battlefield, left EA. So everything they worked on got scrapped. And Criterion was tasked to make the new single player game for the new Battlefield game. They have barely a year to do it. If the game is coming out 2025 autumn. They have barely a year to do it. And then 2 months later, EA announces that EA Motive, the studio that worked on Battlefront 2 single player, and the remake of Dead Space, they're working on the next Battlefield single player game. So whatever Criterion was working on was also scrapped. So that means the development of the next Battlefield single player got scrapped 2 times now. And we're working again from scratch with the new studio. And of course, Motive will have their own ideas and what they want to do and so on. Because the way they see, different development studio and so on. So that goes scrapped. So that means they even have less time to make a single player game for the next Battlefield game. They have less time to do it. So that's only, sure, you could release the single player game a bit later than the multiplayer. You release the multiplayer now, and then you release the single player game. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. The people are not gonna pay money for that. That's a really weird way to release the thing. I get the reasoning if they would ever do, but I don't think that would be a good. I don't think that's a good idea. You kind of want to release the single player first, and then maybe the multiplayer later. If we're doing releases for different content, for different for Battle Royale, multiplayer, and single player differently. No, but I think you should release the single player first, one way or another, or at least at the same time as the multiplayer. That's the most. So basically, there's no time to finish the single player, and there's no way they're gonna finish for 2025. So I just don't see it. So I don't think it's for this year. There's no way. Also, Andrew Wilson has been very vague about the release date too. For the last decade, EA CEOs were really clear when the next Battlefield game is gonna come out. They've been very, very clear. So yeah, Battlefield 1 is gonna come out autumn 2016, right? It will be in autumn holiday season, or holiday season, whatever the case may be. Then Battlefield 5, yeah, it will be holiday season this year. Didn't give a specific date, of course, but they say the timeline when the game is gonna come out in that time period. And it's been for the last 10 years. They've been very adamant when the game is going to come out. This time, with even Battlefield 1 2042, even that game was very clear. Yeah, the game is going to come out in this time frame. There was no mention of, maybe we'll delay the game for 6 months to fix the bugs and everything. So they should have, but hey, that's not the point. The EA CEOs were very adamant about when the game is going to come out. This time around, Andrew Wilson says it's gonna come out 2026 fiscal year, which ends April next year. So I'm like, okay. Then there was another. That's what he said back in February, I think, or March for the investor call. No, I think it was February. Yeah, it was February. I think it was February. So that's when Wilson said, yeah, the game is still scheduled for 2026 fiscal year, which ends April next year. And he also said that he does not oppose for the idea to release the game after fiscal year 2026. So he's okay delaying the game beyond April 2026. So next year summer, next year autumn, whatever the case may be. He's not opposed to do that. This is the first time I hear an EA executive talking like that about a Battlefield game. In the last decade, I've been reading a lot of EA investor calls and everything for the podcast and all that kind of stuff. I'm making videos, YouTubes and so on, and people love to see what people what does Andrew Wilson mean by that? Well, I'm telling you what what he means by that. He means that the game is not fucking finished and it's not coming out later this year because we're not fucking done. We're so behind with everything. So that's what it is. That's a good indication to me that the game is not gonna come out this year, because he would announce the date or the period when the game is gonna come out at that last investor call that happened a month ago, back in May. He didn't say when the game is gonna come out. They didn't even announce it like the period. They said like, yeah, the game is coming out 2026 fiscal year, and Battlefield Labs is a huge success. That's it. That's the thing. The only thing he said in the last investor call. And speaking of Battlefield Labs' existence does prove a point, because Battlefield Labs existed. As soon as, like I said at the start of this episode, as soon as Battlefield Labs got announced, I said on that episode, like 3-4 months ago, the game is not gonna come out later this year. There's no way. Because it's just, okay, if anyone has any experience, if you're listening to this podcast and you played in Battlefield 4 CTE back in the day, right? You know how long it took for the developers to do any changes or produce content and test it on CTE, then test it again and then release it for the public. There was a lot time gaps, like that was nothing was happening, because developers were working on this content and making sure that, hey, you have something playable on the playtest on CTE. We'll get the data, and after the data is collected, we'll see if we can apply that feedback to the next build, and then when the game is somewhat in a good state, we can release the content and so on. Took a while, took a long time to do it, and Battlefield Labs is not going to be different. You will need time to gather all the the data, the feedback from Battlefield Labs, about the locked weapons or the abilities, field upgrades, whatever they're called, right? Field upgrades, the weapon restrictions. Should the weapons be restricted to classes or should not be restricted to classes? Then everything else, cosmetics, probably map design, game modes, how the game feels, and everything. There's lots of things that you need to go through, filter the feedback and see what you can apply for the next build. Then you playtest that again, see what works, and then at one point we're gonna hit the stage when it's like in open beta stages, and we can actually like have a somewhat stable build where people are having fun with the game. There's loads of iteration and loads of things will be scrapped, loads of things will be cancelled or redefined, whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. There's lots of things that will need to be worked on. It needs time. We're already at end of June. We're entering July. We still don't have a reveal for the game, and which I'll talk about in a moment later. We still don't have a reveal for the game. There's no time. If the game is gonna come out later this year, I'll be very impressed that they did it. But at the same time, I'll be really worried because I'm expecting a horrible launch. Absolute horrible launch if that happens. And this is the most expensive Battlefield game to date. 4 studios working on this game, with 1 already closed down. So technically 5. The 5 studios worked or working on this game. It's the most expensive Battlefield game to date. Now people were saying like, oh, why there's no reveal and so on and all that kind of stuff. Well, because why there was no Battlefield on Xbox Showcase. Listen here. Microsoft. Who owns Xbox? Microsoft. Who owns Call of Duty right now? Microsoft. Which is basically a Xbox exclusive. It's not, but you get what I mean. Microsoft owns Call of Duty. And you damn right know that, if you listen to this podcast, you damn right know that Battlefield and Call of Duty always been this traditional rivalry, right? It's been they were traditional rivals, because Battlefield basically was an alternative to Call of Duty. Hey, you don't want the sorry, I hit my microphone. You don't want like 6-on-6 typical simple. I need to stop knocking stuff off my table and everything. Anyway, you don't want to play Call of Duty. There's 6-on-6 small maps and everything. What about Battlefield? Try a bit something bigger with vehicles, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's still arcade. It still feels like, you will feel like a home, right? So Battlefield always been that, right? To Call of Duty, or when you're sick of big battles and vehicles and everything, you can always have something else, which is like Call of Duty, right? The Call of Duty and Battlefield player base always, mixed. The player base always mixed because it's just like those type of games, right? So, did you literally expected a Battlefield game, the most expensive Battlefield game, to be revealed at Microsoft's event, where the main promotion for Call of Duty? Of course not. Hell no. Hell no. And of course, we love why there was no Summer Game Fest. Well, a week before the Summer Game Fest showed a graph. Oh, these are the publishers and developers that feature on Game Fest, and EA was not there. Any of the EA studios was not on the list. So I'm like, okay, they're not gonna be on the Game Fest. But kind of makes sense because they want to do their own thing. And of course, some people say like, but maybe they gonna release their own trailer, because they want to do their own thing. Maybe they release on the same time as Game Fest. I'm like, no, they don't want to compete with any other game for exposure because they want all the exposure. So the reveal will happen during the summer. What's his name? The producer Andy Makamara. What's his name? I guess one of the DICE EA people, right? He replied to some content creator and he said, "Yeah, the reveal will happen this summer." He didn't specify when. Could be July. Could be August. Could be any time, right? And that's pretty late for to reveal a game that is coming out later this year. It can happen. It happened before with Call of Duty, but I don't think it will happen with Battlefield because, again, most expensive Battlefield game to date. They don't want to share any coverage with anyone else. They will do the reveal in the summer when they know 100% that there's no Call of Duty reveal, there's no Warzone news, there's nothing in the background, there's nothing, literally nothing being announced, so they can have all the attention to them, so all the, journalists and YouTubers, content creators, whatever, they can talk about this game and this game only, because it's the most expensive game. That means we need most extreme exposure we can get from the player base and everything else, like from the media and so on. That's what we're working here with. You have to understand that. So if you want to predict when the reveal will happen, I'm telling you right now, the reveal will not happen at Gamescom. The most that Gamescom will show is maybe something after the reveal. That's the most you will see at Gamescom. You will not see a reveal for the next game at Gamescom, because Gamescom is like there will be other big games out there, and no, Battlefield doesn't want to do that. Doesn't want to do that because it's too many eyes on other games. Hell no, they want maximum exposure. So that's not gonna happen on Gamescom. If the reveal doesn't happen on Gamescom, don't expect a big reveal on Gamescom. Do not expect that. And if that happens, do not expect this game to come out later this year. That's just not happening. So that's all the 5-6 points I want to mention why this game will not come out later this year. Because signs are there indicating that this game is not ready for release this year. Am I wrong? Could be. Maybe it's releasing later this year. I could be absolutely wrong. But if I'm wrong, I will be right at the same time, because I have a feeling the game will be either bare bones as fuck or broken as hell. Two options. If this game is gonna come out later this year, expect a very bare bones release or extremely broken release. One of those two. That's my prediction. Now, I love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about this. If the game comes out later this year, fine. More content for me. It doesn't matter. For me, it's more content. You have to understand. For me, it's more content. But at the same time, I want this Battlefield game to be a success, because if this game is not a fucking success, I don't think this podcast will survive for long, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying. If this game has a horrible reviews, horrible release date, and all that kind of stuff, that means people don't care about Battlefield, and because they don't care about Battlefield, I don't get any more listeners. People don't care about Battlefield, and I'm just basically talking against the wall to myself. Simple as that. That's the truth. I want this game to be a fucking success. If it's not, we all screwed. Every single person working in this game, every person making content on this game is freaking screwed. Simple as that. So this is my prediction. If the game is gonna come out later this year, it's gonna be bare bones, which is maybe not a bad thing if you think about, as long as it works. Sure. But after 2042, you don't want a game that is bare bones. I think we all agree on that. And we don't want a broken launch because, like I said, we're all screwed if that happens. So that's my prediction. But I think EA is smart. Vince Zampella is smart. Byron Beatty is smart. If someone's pushing for autumn release, smart people will stop those people from making the biggest mistake in their lives. They will stop them from making a big mistake. That's what I'm saying. We'll see. But that's my prediction. It's not gonna come out this year. It's gonna come out maybe February or March, maybe even April. I kind of doubt they can release it during the summer. I kind of doubt it. If it happens, like, holy shit. But I don't think it's. I think March is probably the more reasonable release date. But yeah. So that's my prediction about the release date and everything. So I've been talking about this for like 20 minutes now, 25 about it. So I hope I put my thoughts and opinions, or what's the word I'm looking for, analysis about the release date. So that's that.